Jung's Analytical Psychology, Part 3, Teleology, Personality Psychology, Dr. Michael Botwin, Department of Psychology, California State University, Fresno.
Destiny! No escaping, that's for me! Destiny! Destiny! No escaping, that's for me! Destiny! Destiny! No escaping! No.
It's a clip from one of my favorite all-time movies, Young Frankenstein by Mel Brooks. It's considered one of the funniest movies of all time by the American Film Institute. In this clip, Dr. Frankenstein is denying that he is the grandson of Dr. Victor Frankenstein. By no escaping death, he's talking about the monster and overcoming death by creating the monster, and then you've created life, which is basically the plot of any Frankenstein movie. But what is your destiny? How do you see your future? We just left a discussion of Freud, and Freud basically says your personality is set in stone by age 6. Carl Jung has a rather different idea about that. He believes that your destiny shapes your behavior in the present. He borrows a term that goes back to Aristotle. And Hall and Lindzey, two of the primary reporters of Jung's work and translators of it, translate Jung's definition of teleology to say that a person lives by their aims as well as their causes. So you live by what happened to you in the past, what's happening to you now, and what you anticipate happening in the future. So we have a little timeline here that's life. So Jung agrees with Freud that a lot of what shapes our current behavior is indeed caused by our past. But we live in the present, and there are lots of factors that affect our behavior in the present. All kinds of environmental, social, political, cultural kinds of things affect our behavior in the present day. But we don't live just in the past and the present. We also think about our future. We think about what we aim to do, as Hall and Lindsay say. So as you progress down your timeline of life, you're thinking about what I'm doing now, what I'm planning on doing in the future, and how that is going to in turn affect my behavior. So I'm making the assumption the majority of people watching this clip are students. For some reason, you in your past have decided to become a college student, and if you're watching this, most likely a psychology major. So you're doing things in the present based on the past and how it shaped you to want to be a psychology major now. But you don't plan on being a psychology major forever. At least I hope not. And the administrators on our campus really hope not. They want to graduate you in 120 units. And most of you are putting considerable thought into your future. So right now you're sacrificing your time, you're taking classes, you're studying. You're doing all kinds of things so that you can get a position that you want in the future as a career. I always tell my students that I'm mentoring in my research program, the ones that are going on to graduate programs, think about not the graduate program that you're getting into, but the job you want to get based on what you're doing in that graduate program. So many students right now are sacrificing lots of things for their future. You're keeping your grades up. You might be apprenticing yourself in a laboratory working with a faculty member without pay, but you're getting that research experience. And if you're lucky, you may get that experience paid for as a professional presentation at a conference, maybe regionally or nationally, or some of my students have even presented internationally. So you're doing all of these things right now that only make sense when you look at the future. Why do research for free? Because you want to get into a graduate program and you need to have research experience. Why study hard? You need a good GPA. So you're thinking about your future, and that's teleology. What you're doing now is affected by what got you here and where you're planning on going. I always tell the students that work with me that they should do things like become student affiliates of the American Psychological Association or the Association for Psych Science and start becoming an apprentice and doing the things that professional psychologists do that you can do as an undergraduate. Students that work with me work in my lab, do research. Other students do volunteer stuff. Depends on what area of psychology you want to go into in the long run. But you're doing a lot of stuff right now that doesn't necessarily make a whole lot of sense because you're thinking with your future in mind. You might be sacrificing material goods. You might be sacrificing relationships and time. But you're looking for that future goal. You're planning on what you're doing in the future. Some people do it very deliberately. They'll even write it down. Other people just kind of have it in the back of their head and are going that direction. But thinking about having a future affects your present day behavior. The average lifespan of the Bay Area gangbanger is about 22 years. That's not a whole lot of future. If you're in that position, you may just do a whole bunch of destructive, negative things. You might be just living for today and partying and getting involved in illicit behavior because what the hell? You have no future anyway. Most people you know are going to be dead at 22. Think about how someone lives their life when they don't see them having themselves having a future. It's radically different. Locally in Fresno, there's a group called Hope Now for Youth. The big thing that they do is they try to take individuals who have been in a gang and get them jobs, get them back on the straight and narrow, so that they have a future. Better to be working a minimum wage job now and live till 80 than be pulling in a bunch of drug money and die at 22. So they don't do this for particularly Jungian reasons, but they see the importance of having a future. So that's Jung's notion of teleology. I think it's the most important component of his theory that we're going to discuss. Hint, hint, say no more, say no more. And I learned this with discussions with one of my late learned colleagues, Harrison Madden, who was a Jungian scholar and came to my very first attempt to teach Jung, which was a disaster and a half. But that's another story, probably over a coffee or a beer or something. So, at least in the near future, you've got a lot more to learn about Carl Jung. We'll see you next time on Personality. This has been a We Have Couches video production. Copyright 2020, Professor Michael Botwin. All rights reserved.